Hi, my name is Robert. This video is designed to give you step-by-step detailed instruction on completing the task at hand. Visit my YouTube channel and watch my disclaimer video. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you find the information you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, I'm getting ready to replace the antenna mast on this XJ8. These antenna masts are similar on many cars, makes, and models, but as you can see, this antenna is broken off. But when I turn the car on and the radio's on, I can hear the antenna trying to wound up. And when I turn the car off and I open up the trunk, I can hear the antenna trying to wind down. So the motor's good, but the mast, it's called a mast, is broken. And I got a mast from an aftermarket place for around 25 bucks. I've seen them anywhere from 15 bucks to 40 bucks, depending on the kind of car you have. And if you get it from the dealer, it'll be anywhere from $95 up to 150 bucks normally. So I personally prefer to replace the antenna mast, because without that mast you lose reception of lower powered radio stations. Say for instance you're running around town, if you're in the city like I am, you could pick up your powerful stations, but you'll miss your low powered stations. So if there's 30 radio stations in your area, you may only get 12 of them because your antenna is not going up and down. There is a mastless antenna that you could replace that with, but I'm just going to spend, under 50 bucks to replace the mast. I don't know how much the other ones are, and the car will be in its original condition. So if you don't have an antenna, you may break the city limits and lose your radio station in 15-20 miles, whereas if you have an antenna, you may be able to keep your radio station for up to 70 miles. So to get that antenna mast replaced, what I normally do is I turn the car on, leave the radio on so that the antenna process is fully extended. Then I access the antenna motor and unplug the electrical portion of it so that it doesn't wind back in when I go to shut the car off and disconnect that. Then I take the motor apart, take out any of the old masts, I wound the new mast in, turn the car back on, and then plug in the motor, and that should pull the mast back down into the motor, and then I reinstall it into the rear fender of the car. So let's get started. If you see that your antenna grommet going through the body of the car is rotted out, you might want to go ahead and order that and replace that as well. These are the tools and equipment you need to do the antenna, or these are the ones that I use. Of course, you get your antenna mast with the zip cord. You want a Phillips screwdriver, adjustable jaw, a tiny screwdriver to remove the gears from the motor if you need to, a pair of pliers to help you get a part out of the antenna, 8mm ratchet, flat tip screwdriver, you may or may not need that, and then the grommet around the base of the antenna if you want to replace that. Next thing I'm going to do is take an adjustable jaw wrench and take that bolt loose there and remove it. My bolt didn't want to come off because the antenna was holding it in, so I had to crimp the antenna in with a pair of pliers. Now another thing you need to know about this antenna mast job is if the antenna was broken and you pulled it out with the ripcord, you do not have to remove the motor. So if the antenna is going up and not going up all the way or not going down all the way, you will need to remove the motor. So if you did break the antenna and you pulled it out and the ripcord came out with it, you can advance toward the end of the video to this time mark stamped here. First thing you need to do with the cars is get the material off that blocks access to that antenna motor. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the material away from the motor. Bottom one up too. So I'm going to take this off on this XJ8. Now you'll see the battery and stuff. Next I want to pull out the floor insert because it needs to be pulled out to get the back insert out. Then I could pull out the side insert. Whenever you have a car like this, try to be careful not to drop anything on the battery post there. You don't want to short anything out. Now I threaded the top of the stuff off where you can see the gas tank back there. Now I'm going to pull these clips out. Look like I got 2 of them. And then pull this piece out and set it aside. Looks like I could just get away with folding this on the side of the battery. Now this piece tries to come out, so I'm going to work it out and down. Look like it's stuck up top somewhere. Alright, now I see I have access to the motor there. So I'm just going to pull this away from the fender. I worked this out. It didn't look like it was clipped to anything. Now I have full access to the motor. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug the electrical lead on the motor so that the motor doesn't try to retract when I pull the turn the car off. Here's the plug on the motor. You had to reach around to the blind side of it, push that tab in to pull that plug out. So now I'm going to turn the car off, and I should be able to hear that that motor doesn't try to retract now. I'm going to come in here and take that bolt loose and take that lower bracket bolt loose, and that should free the antenna to come out. But I'm going to have to unplug the antenna wire here and then unplug the drain plug from the bottom of it there. So let me do those 4 things real quick. The antenna assembly came out. It was easier just to pull the whole drain plug out of the body of the car versus get it loose from the bottom of that tube there. But now I have 6 Phillips screws that I need to remove. So go ahead and remove those 6 screws and take the top off the motor. Being careful you don't pull it apart too fast so you don't lose anything or anything pops out on it. Okay, now that I have those screws removed, I lift the top of the motor off, and this is the assembly that the motor cord winds up in. So if you look, you pull that off, then you pull this off, and you see all the grease and stuff in there and the gear for the motor in there, and then the antenna should have a thing under there that winds up into this piece, into that piece, but I actually don't see it. So I don't know if somebody's already pulled this mast all the way out of here or not. So let me see if I could grab the tip of this and pull this antenna the rest of the way out. Okay, something went a little wrong on this one. I kept pulling and pulling and pulling, and it pulled the whole antenna apart out. But what you should do is hold on to this part, and you should be able to pull this part out, which now it's out. But on the bottom of that, there should be a rip cord. So I'll show you the new part so you can see that rip cord. So I need to slide this back down in here and get that secured back in the motor assembly. That should not have come out. Alright, here's the antenna mast that I picked up. It's Euro parts. I'm not a big fan of the supplier for vacuum type hoses and rubber hoses, but I hadn't had any problems with these. This is the actual part number for the one that I got for this Jaguar XJ8. It may be the same for many. And you see that zip cord in there, so I'm going to feed that into this motor in a second. So here I have the antenna all the way retracted, and that's how much zip cord I have out of there. That looks like about 3 feet of cord. Now if you've pulled that antenna out because it was broken and you pulled 3 feet of cord out, you really don't need to remove the whole assembly to replace it. All you have to do is take that top bolt off, pull the broken antenna part out, and if the rip cord's already been pulled out, that's all you have to do is feed the new one down in there. But if you are not sure that all this rip cord came out of the old antenna, then you need to remove the antenna, take it apart, and feed this plastic zip cord. Okay, now that I know I don't have no zip cord in there, I'm going to put this assembly back together and install it back in the car, and then I'm going to feed the antenna down in there and get it reel the antenna in. So let me go ahead and close this part back up. First thing I'm going to do is pack some of this grease back down on the gears the way it was down here to keep everything lubricated. I'm going to also put a little bit of this grease on the end of the zip cord so that the cord will be greased while it's going in and out. Okay, I got this lifted out. Make sure that gear is greased up, grease under it. Make sure it's pushed all the way down and seated in that gear down there. Then I'm going to put this gear back in place. Make sure it's seated all the way down there and that those gears are locked in place, because that motor is what turned these gears that reels that in. Now I'm going to put this back in place. Make sure it sits down, and it's the guide that helps reel that in and keeps those gears locked down in place. So let me get that settled back in there. Then I'm going to put the hub back in, which is the storage unit for that zip cord. Now I'm going to put the motor casing back in with the 6 screws. There is a little washer that's stuck to the inside of the casing that needs to be over that properly. So make sure you got that stuff all in place the way it needs to be. Okay, now that I got these screws back in, I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the motor into the car. I'm going to hook that drain line in. I'm going to put that lower bolt in. I'm going to hook up the plug, the antenna, and that ground wire. I took that rubber grommet off of the bottom of that drain tube and worked it back in the body. Just too hard to do that. Make sure you don't drop it in there when you're doing it. Okay, I got my drain hole in. I got my lower bolt tightened. I got my ground wire hooked up, my antenna wire hooked up, and my power wire hooked up. So I'm going to go cycle the power switch. But when I do, I got to come back here and run this antenna in when it starts to wound in. Now when it starts to feed in, when I put this down, I'm going to put the threads pointing to the outer side of the car, because that's where the teeth will catch. And when I first go down with it, it'll bump and try to stop there. And that's at the base of the antenna tube. I got to get it past that so that it can get caught in the teeth of the motor. So let me go ahead and cycle the key so that this motor will try to reach for this antenna and draw it down. I turn the car on, and you can hear the motor trying to extend the antenna. When it stops, I'm going to feed the antenna down, and then I'm going to go in the car, cut the key off, and run back here and try to feed it in. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is take the new sleeve, slide it down the antenna, and then I'm going to feed the antenna into the motor. You need to slide this sleeve on there because that stops the antenna from backing out. Alright, that's set right there like that. Now I'm going to feed that antenna into the motor. Now I'm going to go ahead and feed the threaded part in, cut the radio off, and come back here and feed it down in there. Remember, before you try this antenna feed, you got to have this little metal piece looped over the antenna, because that piece does 2 things. 1, it stops the antenna from feeding all the way out, and 2, it stops the antenna from feeding down in too far. Okay, I got the antenna fed into the hole. Now I'm going to go cut the power to the radio and run back here and feed this in. Okay, when I cut the radio off, I didn't hear nothing at first, but the antenna did catch and started sucking in. So it did suck it in as far as it could. Now it's still sticking up a little bit, but I'm going to work the sleeve into the antenna body. Then I'm going to put the nut on. Then I'm going to cycle it in again, and it should be perfect on the second cycle. But I got to get that nut on before I cycle it the second time. Okay, I got that little sleeve worked in. Now I'm going to put the nut over it and screw the nut down and secure the antenna to the body. Okay, I cranked the securing antenna bolt on. I snugged it down. I didn't tighten it too tight because I don't want to tear the seal or mess up the teeth. So now I'm going to go cycle the radio, and we should be able to watch the antenna come up first, and then when it comes down that time, it'll go all the way down. Okay, here's the antenna coming up. Turn the car on, and it stopped. Now when it goes down, it should go all the way back down. Let me cut the power to the radio. There it goes, it's going down. Now the last thing I'm going to do before I consider myself finished, man, that should have went all the way down. It didn't. Let me see what's going wrong. Okay, I came over and pushed it down with my hand. Let me cycle it one more time, see if it works right this time. But this time when I cycle it up, I'm going to oil the antenna. Actually, I'm going to use some lithium grease on a rag or something, because you want to lubricate the metal part of the antenna that telescopes down so that it's not getting raw and binding. And then I'm going to let it down. Hopefully it'll go all the way down that time. Okay, I'm going to spray this lithium grease on this rag and wipe the antenna shaft. You don't have to use this lithium grease. You could use WD-40. That's what most people use. And I would recommend oiling that antenna every time you do an oil change, or maybe even once a month, so that the antenna doesn't stress itself binding going up and down. All right, cut the radio off. The antenna should be going down. It is nice and quiet. And it did make it all the way down that time, so we're good to go. If you feel that this information was beneficial, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can also subscribe to my channel so that you can get notification of future videos that I post. Visit my channel. I have all types of do-it-yourself videos there. You can leave questions here and I'll try to respond to them as quick as possible. You can also visit my website at robertspinner.com. Thanks again for watching.